I am so excited to have today's guest. Tepsi is a copywriting and business teacher for soulful entrepreneurs. She's an amazing public speaker, a teacher, and an amazing coach. And I should know because she's my coach. Tepsi left her corporate career 2 months after starting her copywriting career in March 2015 because she had more than replaced her salary by then. And she retired her husband, Sean, a federal attorney, in just 4 months and moved back to South Africa, her birthplace. Tepsi always talks about a thriving life where she's able to also have the freedom to make a wider impact on the world. And I wanted to talk to Tepsi especially now because she wants to use her copywriting and online marketing skills to help students fine-tune their skills for this creative economy that we're in. I'm so glad that you accepted my request to do this interview, Tepsi. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Sudhiksha. It is my supreme pleasure to be here, to be sharing and to be communicating with people who are listening as well as with you, because I think that between us, we've got a lot of gems, knowledge gems to share.
So first of all, besides the introduction that I just gave, what would you like to add about yourself, Tepsi?
Well, I think my most important role is wife and mother of three really crazy curly heads. And I emphasize that they're curly because they never want me to brush their hair. What a disaster. So that is my driver, my source of inspiration, who keeps me going no matter what. I cannot give up because my girls are watching. And, yesterday was International Women's Day. And I just think about the legacy that we as women are creating in this day and age. We have, if we live in certain parts of the world, we have a lot of freedom to start going after our dreams. And that is what really inspires me, my girls and the girls all around the world who are watching. So I think that's the one thing I'd like to add, is that my goal is to grow women and girls into leadership, especially from underprivileged or minority backgrounds.
Yes. And I see you doing that every day, trying to do that a little every day. And that's one of my passions too. And so before 2014, I didn't know the term copywriting. And it is not the legal stuff as I hear a lot of times when I say copywriting. So what is copywriting, and how is it that you were able to more than double your salary only after 2 months of being in business?
I like to help make it simple for people to remember that all of our life, we have been persuading and convincing people to go along with our ideas. Whether we were little kids playing hide and go seek, now we have to negotiate who's going to be the hiding people and who are going to be the seekers, right? And later on in life, we are trying to make ourselves, attractive to a mate. You want to persuade them to go on a date with you. So if you can think about it in those concepts, you'll know that you've been a copywriter for most of your life because you've been using persuasion techniques to get people to do what you want. And that is really what copywriting is all about. It's when we put it into the written form and we write out scripts, we write out informational pages, web pages that are also known as sales pages, or any other page of your website. We use copywriting in writing scripts for TV or for speaking, public speaking, or commercials. You see copywriting everywhere you look in your daily life. You just didn't know, maybe a book jacket when you're looking at that book. If it is compelling, then it is well-written copy, maybe on the back of it. So copywriting is really just anything that's written to persuade someone to take an action and say yes to you.
That's a very good definition. The leading question, how is it that you were able to more than double your salary only after 2 months of being in business?
I think that my biggest strength is people. So I focused on people first. Instead of thinking about myself when I first started my business and what can I get? I thought about what do the people around me need in terms of support. And it wasn't strategic at the time. I would just see people in my industry doing really well and thinking, wow, if they're doing it, maybe I can do it. And I would just show up and be the encourager in their community. And by being the encourager, I found a way to really stand out. And when I found my skill for copywriting, I thought I wanted to be a life coach. And later, somebody else introduced me to copywriting and said, you could be really good at this. Not only did they introduce me to it, but they also, referred me to clients. And the only reason they did that was because I had been, someone in their community who had just been really nice to them, who had always supported them, who was the first person to say congratulations. And so they thought of me when it was time to send referrals. So those referrals, the first couple came from that person. But then, I believe in giving above and beyond in terms of service and in terms of delivering, a high quality product. So my clients were really happy and they started shouting me out and sharing about me to their clients. And so really quickly, my name just started getting out there with people organically sharing me. And when I realized, wow, look at the power when people are doing this organically, what if I could also, put my hand into it a little bit? So I started asking people for testimonials. I started asking them to post if they enjoyed their experience with me in Facebook groups. And through those posts and through that engagement, my business became booked. And that's why I named my coaching program Sold Out and Booked Solid, because I wanted to share the same things that I've done to grow my business with other people. And really, my key thing with my community and with my coaching isn't to, just tell them these techniques. Anybody can hear these techniques and try to go and do, replicate them. But are you going to have the tenacity to keep going when things get difficult? Are you going to be able to keep saying yes to yourself when other people might be saying no? Are you going to be able to learn how to value yourself and your self-worth? Those are the things that I really focus on teaching people. So anybody can go out and try to do what I'm talking about. But, then there's that support element. And that's what I really love doing with my clients and my students.
I realized how powerful a strong network can be. So do you think you would have had a similar success if you didn't have that strong network to start with?
Absolutely not. There's no way I could have gotten, I'm just trying to think about it. I didn't know when I first started, I didn't know all the marketing techniques. I wasn't doing Facebook advertising. All the ways that people tell you to get clients, I really couldn't do them. I couldn't go to try and speak at different events and things because I had a really small child and she was still breastfeeding like 24/7. So I couldn't, all the things that I could have been doing, I either didn't know how or I could not do them. The network is what was key for me. And, they always say word of mouth is the strongest form of advertising for any business. And that is what I found to be true for me. But I wasn't networking in the beginning with the goal of getting business. I was networking with the goal of just getting to know people and creating relationships. And when you just create relationships and don't ask for anything in return, people start to figure out, how can I give to her because she's giving to me?
I've told you this story that after finishing my PhD and with a short stint in relocating, it was difficult for me to find a job. And I was trying to find out what are the things that I didn't know. And I started organically connecting with different people. I connected with you. The power of network, I didn't realize how strong it is. How do you go about building such a network?
This is a really good question. I focus on looking at communities where people are heart-centered. They are loving people first, and they care about people, and they also care about the bottom line, making money, right, and bringing in a profit, but they're first people-centric. They care about the environment, they care about animals, they care about children who are less fortunate. You see them giving back in various ways, volunteering, whatever it is, their method of giving back, they're doing it. So that's number one for me, because I know that if I'm in a community like that, then my heart and my soul are fed, and that's number one for me. And then beyond that, as long as you're around nice people, that's like a given. Then next, I look at communities where I see leaders who are doing big things and have big missions and goals for themselves and the people around them. And I want to be in a community where I complement the person who is in that community. So, for example, when I was starting out, I was just doing copywriting one-on-one for people. And, later I grew the coaching side of it. But when I'm starting out, I was doing copywriting. So I looked around, who could I connect to? And I saw very quickly that there are lots of web designers who get clients coming to them, but they don't have any copy written. They have nothing for their website, and the web designer is frustrated because they cannot start their design without some words. So I started making friendships, creating friendships with designers, and we decided, when I get a client for copywriting, I'm going to refer them to you for design. And if you get a client for design, you can refer them to me. So that was one of the ways that I did. The other thing that I did was in joining communities. I used Facebook really heavily. You go into a Facebook community and you just see what's going on in that space. And I could go into almost any business, or entrepreneurial Facebook group and look around and see who are the movers and shakers, who's commenting frequently, who's sharing wins, who's, going for big things every single day. And those are the people sometimes I would just reach out and say, hey, I love what you're doing. Congratulations on this or that. And that's how I started to create some friendships in there. And I also, made sure in those groups, you shout out the leader, you kind of massage their ego a little bit, because people love people who love them. And so that was one of the great things that I did, was just, sharing appreciation for leaders, and adding value to their community, sharing tips on my expertise, sharing a little bit about my life as a mom and as a wife and an entrepreneur. So I wasn't just going in there with one facet of my personality. I'm coming in as a whole human being and showing who I am. And that is really the power of connecting.
That's beautiful. So Tepsi, you mentioned that you connected through Facebook a lot. And at the beginning, did you build a network through social media? Was that your primary way to build a network?
So the first thing that I did that was successful, because I did a lot of things that were missteps, or some people call them failure, but I am really informed by those missteps, because, you try something and it doesn't work, then you can pivot. So I tried to do a lot of things for free, Googling, reading books, listening to podcasts, and I couldn't really piece it all together. When I decided, okay, I'm not succeeding on my own, and I had been trying for 12 years over and over to start businesses that just were not successful. So I realized at some point, the only common denominator there was me. I needed to start learning how to invest in myself, not expecting anybody else to invest in me. So I purchased a program where they're, promise that they will teach you how to build a business in 8 weeks from start to finish. And that wasn't the case. Oh my gosh, that's a lofty promise. First of all, so if anything is promising you that, just be a little bit wary. But what I did get out of that program was I got immersed, my feet wet in the entrepreneurial online marketing, coaching, copywriting, wellness, all these different areas. I got immersed in that world. And I started to see other entrepreneurs that were really doing it big time. And I started to see what was possible for me. And so I wasn't really successful with that program, and it discouraged me for about 6 to 8 months. I was really discouraged. I felt like a loser. I thought to myself, I've just wasted all this money, no results. My husband is not going to listen to me when I tell him, I want to do something else. He's going to say, remember when? But I just kind of decided, you know what? I just have to keep trying. If I don't keep trying, I'm going to die. So I, through that first program that I found other people who could actually teach me the real methods that I needed to be following, and I could join their communities and start to learn a little bit. And so I joined their communities kind of after starting to network and getting to know different people. And then when I joined, that was like a pivotal point for me, because I had already invested that first money in the program that didn't work, thousands of dollars. And now it was time. I said to myself, this time I've got to make it work, and I've got to show up a lot differently than I did in that last program. I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to, go out there every single day and show my face, be posting, start doing video, start just creating momentum. People notice when you are creating momentum, when you're, being kind of loud. A lot of us think, oh gosh, I'm going to be bothering people, but really it's refreshing to them because you're sharing knowledge that they don't know. So through investing in myself, through taking that program, I was able to really grow my confidence. And then I started to learn some of the techniques and see why people were doing what they were doing, And in the beginning, I was just word of mouth marketing and doing videos as well with my marketing. But then I started learning about Facebook ads, and then I started, running my own ads, and that led to growing my community more, to adding people to my email subscriber list, and finding my own community of people, which I call my copy besties, my group of people who, have joined. They follow what I say and they share my stuff, and we communicate and collaborate in the community.
And I'm in your community. In one of your Facebook group videos, I think you mentioned that you were unemployed for 18 months after graduating. What would you have done differently then if you knew what you know now?
So if I had known then what was possible for me, and I did know, I saw it, but I just didn't know how. What I would have done immediately is I did work in these, retail kind of environments a little bit at that time. I freelanced. I reached out randomly and boldly to a company that was selling natural hair products for African women, African American too, and their branding was bad, their promotion was bad, and I reached out to them and I said, hey, I can help you fix this. And so I was kind of bold, but once I had that kind of initial, courage to reach out to them, they really never wanted to pay me much, and I was doing tons of work for them, and I grew their, revenue by, they told me 600%, but I didn't really fully believe, and I hadn't created a full vision for myself. And so 1 month when they told me that they couldn't pay me anymore, even though I had helped them grow that much, I kind of lost my confidence, and I didn't reach out to any other brands to see if they needed help. But, that would have been a great thing if I had just kept my momentum, because I was using online forums. I would go in the forums and communicate about their products. I would find bloggers that were, having a community and send them the products for free, and get them to do reviews and give them, shipping codes and things like that. And I was actually doing a lot of what I'm doing now for that company, but I had no idea how to do it for myself. So, and that was, when was that? 2009, I think, or 10? In 2009 into 2010, that's what I was doing. And so that was one thing. If I had just had a little bit more courage, I would have just reached out to more people and commanded the prices based on the worth that I was sharing with them and how their brand was growing. So you can see I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial streak, but I just didn't have the staying power. So that's the first thing I would have done, was keep going. Second thing I would have done was invest in a program or a product to help me from day one, right? So even though I was working in retail, I could, I remember buying clothes. I remember buying other things. Why wasn't I looking for a way to invest in a coach or invest in a program that could have helped me faster from the beginning? Because what a coach does, or what a program does, is accelerate your path instead of you searching and scouring the internet day and night. Why not just go to one central location and, find out all the information? Just like when we go to college, we don't do things on our own. We sign up for a major, we take specific classes, and we're guided through a process. And that's the same thing with coaching or with group programs. So that's my biggest advice to people, is to look for ways that you can help yourself up and out of the problem that you've got.
That is such a good point. Now, when we think about investing in ourselves, I think a lot of us think that, okay, we have spent so much time and money in getting that degree. Now, your suggestion is to invest in in a program outside of the university or a coach. I had never thought about investing myself in a coach. I didn't know that I would be investing so much in my development after my degree. Why do you think that's so important now, especially now?
So in this economy that we're in, there is a lot of volatility. It is no longer the time of you graduate, you go find a job where at the entry level, you move your way up into the senior ranks and then become an executive, and you retire with a 401k and all of the perks and benefits. Companies downsize, because of this new economy. They have to either shift really quickly or they go out of business. We're seeing so many stores going out of business. I saw JCPenney closing a lot of stores, Macy's closing a lot of stores, lots of big corporations that are Fortune 500s losing business because they're failing to adapt to the new way of life, the new way of doing things in our digital economy. So because of this environment now, we have to think differently. We were not born into what our parents were born into in terms of the economy. So now we have to find a way to create a new economy for ourselves. And I think, honestly, to be really truthful with you, I don't actually use much of what I learned at school. I remember, I had to learn SPSS and statistics and, all this different stuff that I did. Looking back, economics and macroeconomics and microeconomics, all this stuff. I'm not using most of it. What I am using a little bit is that I did do research in, communication and theory and how people communicate. That does help me today in my business. But other than that, I'd say 3 out of those 4 years are not something that I'm using today. I still would have probably wanted to go to college for the experience, for meeting people from all over the world, for the activities, for hearing speakers, all that fun stuff. But practically, it did not help me in any job that I've done up until now. I've really learned on the job or trained myself, bought textbooks. It's really important to find a way to feed yourself. Nobody else is responsible for your development, only you. And I used to have that mentality of, I wanted to do this certain certificate at work. Well, my company should send me. They need to send me. And if they don't want to send me, I'm not doing it, right? But I was forgetting that who was going to be the one who ultimately benefits and who could take the knowledge with them beyond, that was going to be me, right? So I want you to change your perspective and your outlook on how you operate in this world, and remember that you are not inheriting the old world. We're actually building the new world from the ground up.
That is such a good message to everyone. Actually, not just students, but also a lot of graduates or early career or even mid-career people that things are changing. And I watched a TED Talk and we see all of the things happening, but we just hope and think that, believe that it's not going to happen to us per se, but this change is happening. Mm-hmm. And I had to find it for myself. And that's why I'm an advocate for continual learning. And that's why I wanted to have you and people like you who are actually living and thriving in this creative economy that we're in. Like you said rightly, students have to change their perspective that it's for them. Even though students, they might go get a job or they might become an entrepreneur, why do they need to have this shift in perception?
So the kind of businesses that are surviving in the marketplace today, I worked in the corporate world for a long time, and you see the ones that are surviving and thriving, not just surviving, but thriving. Those are the ones that quickly adapt, and they allow their employees to shape their mission, their vision, their values, and their goals, right? And so they kind of expect the employee to be entrepreneurial. And I think there's even a word for it, intrapreneurial. I think that's the word for when you're in a company, but you come up with innovative ideas. And you are a thought leader and a example to the people around you. And, one example of this for me was one of my biggest goals when I first left college is I wanted to be a news anchor so bad. And I really wanted to be reading the news on the national TV. That was just a big vision for me. And when I graduated was the time when all of the newsrooms were shrinking their staff because they weren't getting the big advertising dollars that they used to, competing with Netflix and the internet. And so things were changing really, really fast. Like within the 9-month internship I did in a news program, all of a sudden they got new cameras, and the cameras no longer required a person to run them, right? They were all robotic, and they were replacing all these jobs where you needed 4 cameramen. Now you only needed 1 operator who could change and switch which camera was on and off and when, right? So now the job interviews that you were going on, they were expecting you to know how to report and read the news and how to run the camera and how to edit. So you needed to be a lot more innovative in terms of your skill sets than in the past. And I think that's just one example of one, evolution that's happened that I witnessed. But there's many other areas where you see companies no longer hiring you for a specific job. They hire you for your skills, and then you move from project to project within the company or within the organization. And that requires you to have that kind of entrepreneurial mind, to be flexible, to know that not every day is going to be the same. Because me as Tepsi LLC, none of my days are the same. I can say most weeks I can predict I'm going to be doing interviews like this, 2 or 3 of them. I can predict that I will be doing coaching calls with my clients. I can predict that I'll be doing videos for my larger audience, for the public. But in general, nothing stays the same, and I have to adapt really quickly to new trends in marketing and advertising, and the audience becoming more and more savvy and being more discerning.
I'm listening to the experiences that you say, and now I'm getting a better sense of why you are so successful, because you said that even back in 2009, you were already looking at how the businesses could be doing better. So you were already on par, you were already looking forward to what was working or what would work, even before you started your business.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I looked back then, I was so depressed thinking I was failing. I didn't know that was going to be informing my world today, right? So whatever you're going through as the listener here in your life, the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys, know that it's all contributing to your future. Somehow, some way, you're creating a world for yourself.
That is such an important segue to the next question I actually have for you. And this is a quote from Oprah Winfrey. She says, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." And I know you agree with this quote. Are there any particular wounds that you have turned into wisdom?
Yeah, actually, when I first grew a little bit of confidence to put myself out there and post in a Facebook group, that was really, really scary. Hey, the first time I posted was really scary. And then the first time I posted something about myself as who I was the most terrifying thing. And who I am is a woman who's been through a lot. When I was 14, my mom passed away, which was quite sad because she was in a car accident. We didn't expect it. And, my whole world came crashing down as a young woman. And from there, I really had to finish raising myself. My dad was there, but they're not the same as a mom. And he was going through his own pain. So I had to just gather my courage and my strength and show up in the world. And then from there, I got myself in some situations, and I say I got myself into them because, your instincts tell you, your heart tells you this might not be the right thing for you, but you are a little bit stubborn and you go for it anyway. And I totally married the wrong guy at a very young age, had a baby, and realized really quickly when he started abusing me and disrespecting me in many ways that, wow, this is not the relationship for me, right? So then I had to get myself out of that. And in the middle there, I had left university at, 2 years in, and I had to find a way to start supporting myself and my child. And that's when I got my first real corporate job that wasn't admin or secretarial. I got a job as an instructional designer, which is someone who does corporate training and creates curriculum and e-learning, a lot like what I do today, actually. So I got that job. I was 21 and with a small child. And, by the time I turned 22, I realized that the company I was working for wasn't going to pay me the way that they paid other people. They kept telling me, well, you don't have a degree. So that's when I went back to school. But it was all these like painful things that happened to me or that I took part in and participated in that kind of led me to where I am now. And it's through that post where I shared on Facebook about my life and about where I'd come from, about the hurt that I had experienced. That's when people actually started responding to me. And they, started saying, wow, you're so relatable and your story is so inspiring because you don't tell it in order to get pity or to still feel sad or whatever. You're telling it, talking about how you've overcome and what you've achieved now and what's possible for other people in your shoes. And so those people, their response to me really changed the way that I marketed and the way that I did business and the way that I decided that my brand was going to be one where I wore my heart on my sleeve. In corporate, that is not rewarded. Nobody wants you to talk about your story and all the stuff you've been through business. But in this world, this economy, people want to know who you are. And that's why reality TV does so well, because it's supposedly unscripted, though we all know it's pretty scripted, and it's showing people's real lives. So sharing my vulnerability has been my biggest strength. And I actually created a challenge for people to share their stories, teach them how to share their stories, teach them how to infuse their stories into the writing that they do, the copywriting on their website, into their interviews and their live streams. And actually that is what brings in a lot more money than just talking about plain facts and business only. And for me, that week where we did that challenge, I had a $10,000 week by doing that challenge, by sharing my own story, by teaching other people how to share their story. And, I had a great week for my business.
Wow, that is so true. I think I know you more as a person than I know most of my friends in schools and then teachers, coworkers. This is a whole new world, and showing up in a way, like you say, being vulnerable is the new way. That sounds scary.
It is scary. And I have to say that I don't want you to be reckless with your vulnerability, right? So if you're not comfortable sharing everything, every part of your story, right? Start with a little piece. You don't have to share the entire story like I just did. And recently, when we did that challenge, I shared some new things that I had never shared before, actually, because I was asking the people in my community to share about themselves. And it became like a revolution. It was really amazing and groundbreaking for a lot of people and freeing for them. And so I decided to participate as well and share some new things about my story that I hadn't before. And you have to do that responsibly. You have to do that in a safe community, a safe place. You don't want to just be going out there willy-nilly telling whoever your story. You have to know that it's for a purpose and in the right environment and where people are receptive to hearing you and to, supporting you and to being open in a lot of ways. So if you don't feel comfortable yet and that sounds scary or feels scary for you, baby steps. Just do baby steps. Tell us one part of your story. I don't want anybody to have, major breakdowns or, experience a lot of stress in their life because they're just opening up the floodgates and becoming an open book before they're ready.
Right. That is so true. So previously we talked about the lows, and I also want to talk about the glory and the wins. Why is it important to ground yourself when you're flying high? Let's say getting good grades and winning competitions. I'll add a personal note to this. Starting my undergraduate career, I was fully funded with a scholarship. Then I got my first job even before I graduated, grad school with assistantship. And then that sometimes gets into your head that life is going to continue to be that one smooth road. So why is it important to ground yourself when you're thinking that you can do it all?
So I think what happens is when we start to be successful, experience getting the scholarships and getting good grades and all that stuff, what happens is a little bit of our ego steps in as a person. And it's normal. We all go through that. It's like, I got this. I'm really good at this. But at the same time as you're going for all those things and achieving all those things, you really need to be focusing on growing your spirit. And this is my own personal experience. Everybody has their own. But for me, I found that I really need to focus on growing my spirit, feeding my soul, praying, meditating, going to retreats or conferences where there's like-minded people who are also invested in their own growth and can help me get where I want to go. Because what happens is a lot of stuff starts to, shift in your world, and maybe you have one little, knock in your belt that brings you down a little bit, and then another one, and then another one, and suddenly you start to feel really crap about yourself because you didn't get that scholarship, or because you didn't get that job, or because, your boyfriend broke up with you, or whatever it is. And you realize very quickly that you've been putting all your self-worth into the achievements, and you become the achievement. Rather than you being a whole person as you are, you only think of yourself in terms of, what have I done? What am I contributing? How have I been successful? And that can be really dangerous, especially for somebody who spent their whole life in academia and that's all they see themselves as. There's other parts of you. You're a mom, maybe a sister, a friend. You are a lover of nature. You have other hobbies that feed your soul. You aren't just the sum of the grades on your transcript or the jobs on your resume. And I think that's where, or even in business, you're not just the sum total of what's on your profit and loss statement. You are a real person working with real souls all over, the world. For me, that's the case. And I have to remember that. I have to hold on to the people and hold on to my sense of self, so that when things go up or things go down, I'm not totally wiped out, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, physically, otherwise. And I've learned that the hardest way possible, because I'm not egotistical, but I've had really a lot of success in my business. And so when you have a lot of success, you kind of assume that everything you touch is going to turn to gold. And the moment something doesn't, you think something is wrong with me, and I, Tepsi, have ruined this. And oh my gosh, my life is going down in the drains, when it really isn't. And you are responsible for picking yourself back up using those spiritual tools that I mentioned before.
That was so powerful, Tepsi, when you said you are not your achievement. Your whole worth is not your achievement. Oh my gosh. So now, you said in Lioness of Africa that you would like to partner with universities and government to create a wider impact and train students in true entrepreneurship, not just theory. Can you elaborate on that? What does true entrepreneurship training look like to you?
So when I went to university, my major was communication and my minor was entrepreneurship. And I assumed that I was going to learn all about how to grow a business, how to start and grow a business and maintain it. But instead, what I learned was really complex and business analysis and how to figure out the elasticity of the economy and just all these really arbitrary things, equations, and just nothing to do with starting a real business. The closest I got there to learning about a real business was when a florist came in, who was an entrepreneur. She came into my entrepreneurship class, and she just talked to us about, running her florist business and how she managed it. But other than that, never got to see what a real business was run like. I only got to learn basically what would have been, financial tools for running not small businesses, for running big businesses, in my opinion, right? So instead of all those equations and the financial tools and the style that I was taught, my goal is to show people in the trenches, day in, day out, this is how you, brand yourself. This is how you decide what you're going to sell. This is how you figure out if there's a market for it. And honestly, I've never done a single equation to forecast how many units of something I was going to sell. I just kind of say to myself, okay, my goal is to fill this with 15 people in this program, and I'm going to charge $2,500 for it. I'm going to do these marketing activities to get there. And I'm going to make sure that I touch this many individuals in order to do that. So yes, there is some math, but it's not the style that I was taught in school. And it's a lot more focused on the message and the people that I'm touching. That is what true entrepreneurship is figuring out where there's a problem and finding a solution for it and executing the solution. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. But what I realized really quickly is I could build a business using only my brain, my heart, and eventually my website when I created one. But the first 2 or 3 months, I didn't even have a website. All I had was my networking skills. And that is something that I can share. That's something that I can teach. The charisma and people skills and how to market, that is actually a transferable skill. So how about we concentrate on that in school instead of just like the books and the hard maths and sciences. Those things are needed too. There's a place for them. But we also need to bring in that social aspect of being a well-rounded human being. And I think a lot of universities are graduating people who don't even know how to say thank you or good morning or, how are you, and look people in the eye, things like that. That is where entrepreneurship really, I felt like I could differentiate myself in my space because I do have charisma and I do bring personality to what I'm doing.
Wow. Okay. So leading into that, there's this age-old chicken or egg discussion about getting a job. How do you gain experience when nobody is ready to give you a job right after you graduate? I think that conundrum does not apply anymore in today's age where there are so many opportunities. How should a student be looking at career planning in this day and age?
I think that students can benefit from doing a lot of volunteer and internship type of things. My university would have covered me for an entire semester internship, doing an internship somewhere. I could have gotten an entire semester's worth of credits for doing that. And I think most universities do allow things like that. So if I was, in school now, I wouldn't have just done the one, semester of internship. I would have been interning every semester as much as possible and finding ways where I could get credit for real world experience. And even if you're not doing an internship, some schools allow you to design your own major. And when you design your own major, you can find a lot of flexibility and freedom by doing it your way. Okay, so that is something I really recommend, either if you can design your own major to get the experience you want or getting into internships from, the beginning. The other thing is don't be afraid to go and get some work for free, even while you're in college. Go out and get that experience and work for an organization, or even after you graduate, go, say to them, I'm here to volunteer. You don't have to pay me. And they will see how awesome you are at what you do. And what happens is they scramble and they find a way to pay you. And there you go. You've created a job for yourself. As long as you're giving more value than what what the company perceives that they're giving you, then that is, a win-win situation for both parties. And voila, you've created a job for yourself. So I think that's a really important thing that not enough people are doing. And you don't have to go to a traditional organization to get that internship or that job. There are tons of online, marketplaces and, e-commerce stores and people like me, coaches who would happily take on an intern to do a job because, doing business can be expensive. I have a lot of expenses, advertising and other things. And if somebody wants to come and in exchange for the experience, help me, then, who would say no to such a thing, right? What business owner would say no? I'd be so happy to teach you what I'm doing and how I do it, and perhaps share that knowledge so you can go off and build your own brand someday. So create your own opportunities. Go and find them no matter what. Don't wait for someone to come to you, and stop complaining that nobody will hire you because you don't have any experience. Use that energy for complaining to go and create.
Yeah, that is a strong takeaway. Create value so that you create a job for yourself. That is a powerful takeaway. Where should the listeners go to know more about you?
Thank you very much for having me here. And I'm so excited to share how I can stay in touch with the audience. The first thing that you can do if you're interested in learning more about online business, online entrepreneurship, I have free resources on my website. So if you go to tepsi.com/freebies, you can go and listen. I've got a launching webinar that is a free talk where I'm talking about how to launch, and you can listen to that. I've got resources on copywriting on that page. I've got links to other things. So I just really encourage you to go and seek out the tools that I've got on my website so that you can get a taste of what it's like to work with me. And if you're interested, you can reach out. I also have a complimentary Facebook community called Copy Besties, and you can join that by going to copybesties.com. And I think Sadiksha will be sharing all these links. So in that community, we share daily tips and business advice. People ask questions, and it's a place where you can start to get an idea of how to grow a business, start to get an idea of how to build a brand, start to get an idea of how to write persuasively and profitably. That's my expertise in what I teach. So if this talk has been interesting to you, make sure that you don't just shelve it. Don't just say, oh, that was great, and let me go about my day, business as usual. Today is the day that you can actually start to change your life, carpe diem, and go after what you want. And that's a big theme for me in my life this year is, although I've been quite bold, I haven't been as bold as I could be. There's a lot that's unleashed inside of me and a lot that desires to come out and be expressed fully. And I am excited to be doing that. I'm giving myself little mini dares every single day to do something a little bit scary. And I encourage you to go and do the same. Go take action right now.
I have benefited so much from the value that Tepsi provides from her websites and her Facebook group where I am active. And I didn't realize there was so much information that I could learn from, and every day I grow. And thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Tepsi. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this interview with me.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm so excited to be sharing the message with the people who truly need it. And the next parts of my life are going to be dedicated to making sure that this message reaches millions. And so thank you for being one of those vehicles, Sadiksha, and for showing up so powerfully in your life and in your business as you take the strides that you desire to take. I'm really honored to have been here. I want to thank you for your time and your energy, and I wish you and all of the listeners the very best.
Thank you.